In New Zealand there are close to 6,000 children unable to live with their birth families. They are the children in care. Statistics show that 52% of these children have had between 1 and 3 caregivers, 26% have had between 4 and 6 caregivers, and 22% have had in excess of 6 caregivers. Evidence shows that children raised in care are likely to have poorer adult outcomes. They are more vulnerable to homelessness, unemployment, criminal offending, poor mental health, teen parenthood, and a high level of alcohol and drug abuse.
You need a bit of life experience, and then the organisation that's you're working with normally invests a bit of time in preparing you, trying to prepare you for what might be involved.
I think because there's such a need for it, there's so many kids out there who have nowhere permanent to call home, and our heart is for people to foster like long term, not just, I mean, respite care is great, looking after kids weekends, holidays, but there's so many kids in our nation who need a permanent home forever. They need a mum and dad forever.
There's a huge need out there for families and homes for people, and most families in New Zealand could probably make room for one more.
We're desperately in need of families or parents that can take on children and help them to make the best of their life.
When I grew up, my mum took in children unofficially and fostered them, so I always had it on my heart to be a foster parent, and so did my husband, coming from a large family. So soon after we got married, we looked after my niece's little boy for 3 weeks while she was sick, and then when our children were a bit older, we decided to start with doing official foster care and go through the training.
You see things from a different perspective. You just don't think about things. You grow in capacity to cope with dramas and unusual situations and stuff.
I think for me the biggest benefit would be seeing a kid come into your home and learn some life skills and start to blossom, and to see the change in them. Confidentiality is a big one. I think also for us, treating children that come into our home as part of our family, that's really big for us, and that's important for us, that when they come into our home they are part of our family, and that our extended family treats them as they would our own kids.
Because of these statistics, recruiting sufficient quality caregivers is a common problem. A lack of choice in matching the children's needs with appropriate caregivers has led many to describe foster care as being in crisis.
I'll tell you about the story about a little guy. He was one of the second children we had, and he was 6 and his little sister was 4. So on the day that they were due to arrive, there was a knock at the door, and I went to answer the door, and there's these 2 little kids sitting on our doorstep, and the mum had gone. She just left them sitting on the doorstep with their bags. Every mum would come in and say, you know, do you feel settled, rah-de-rah. So these kiddies came in, and that night I went to put the little guy to bed, and he was a bit dubious about getting into bed. He was a bit shy, and I tucked him in. I said, it's all right, it's all right. And the following morning, went to get him up, and he wouldn't get out of bed. And because I'm a mum, I knew that he'd obviously wet the bed. And I said, it's okay, sweetheart. So I got him out, coaxed him out, gave him a bath, got him changed, and went on with our day. Well, that night, went to put him to bed, and again he hesitated to get into bed. And I pulled the covers back, and this little guy felt the sheets, and he said, oh, you've changed my sheets. And then he smelt the sheets, and he's smelling them, and he's rubbing them, and he's saying, I've got clean sheets, you've changed my sheets. And this little boy obviously had never had somebody change his sheets, and he just kept saying, thank you, and he climbed into bed. And you know, that really taught me a lesson. Not every kid has a mum who changes their sheets when they've wet the bed, and who isn't going to get beaten because they've wet the bed. I'll always remember it. Things that you take for granted.
wasting my time.